want your help finding balance in something.
We're not looking for balance. We're looking only for what feels good.
Okay. Well, my context is I have a powerful desire to be an uplifter, and I'm married to a man who is a wonderful person with whom I have emotional chemistry and spiritual chemistry and intellectual chemistry, but I've never had sexual chemistry with him. 2 years ago, I met a man in a play that I was in, and he kept expressing appreciation of me, and it made me sort of uncomfortable, and I was talking with my husband about it, and he was saying, well, since the dominant energy of the universe is love, if someone's expressing it to you, can't you just let it in? And over time, I developed a relationship with this man, and it grew into this very powerful sexual chemistry, and I felt like a flower blossoming in the sun. And I felt very powerfully from my inner being that it was a good thing, but certainly from a consensus reality point of view, having an affair with someone is not a good thing. My husband's feeling is if I don't have sexual chemistry with him, then that we should not be married. We should be friends, not mates. And I can't find my balance in all of this.
We're going to help you here because there's so much that you're feeling, and it's in such a powerful, pointed place. It will be easy for us to sort through this together, and you will find your place as we chew here together. So just relax and enjoy the unfolding of this. The most important thing that we want to say to you is, and this may be hard to hear at first, so we're going to say it a few times. This sexual chemistry that you're talking about, there is not a difference between the sexual chemistry and what we would call alignment. Because when you said, I felt like a flower that was unfolding, that description is about coming back into alignment with who I am. Now, when you say, I never really felt that with my mate, we would say, at that time, you did not have the capacity to open to your source in the way you now do. So anything that causes you to open now is going to feel more emphatic than any relationship that you've had before you were so consciously available to connection to source energy. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And so let's back up and say it again. Connection to source energy and sexual chemistry are the same thing. In other words, when two people come together in an expectation that isn't cluttered with dominant vibrations that suppress, then you can open to who you really are. And so you can feel this sexual chemistry with your mate, but it's going to take beginning to look at him and him at you in a new, fresh sort of aligning way, which is what the process of virtual reality could bring either one or both of you around to doing. You come together during times of your life when the circumstances that you are living bring you together. And so you come together because law of attraction has brought you together. And then as you have life experience together and response to your life experience, you develop these patterns of vibration that you usually don't shake loose of. In other words, how you vibrate is how you attract, and how you attract is how you observe, and how you observe is how you vibrate, and how you vibrate is how you attract. And so life doesn't change very much for most of you. So you come together in a relationship, especially if you've been together for any length of time, and you sort of develop the way you be together. You develop the way you feel together. And during that process, if there are things that are less than what you want them to be, you're also sending out rockets of desire during all of that. So you're becoming, as you are, and launching rockets, you are becoming accustomed to offering dominant vibrations. At the same time, you're launching rockets of desire, but most of you are not flowing with the rockets of desire. Instead, you're perpetuating the habits of thought and the conversation that you're having. But the desire is preceding you. The desire is going out there and bringing to you things that you want, even though you're vibrationally this way. Now, let's say that you never were in that play and you never met that other person. You were still just, for the most part, interacting with your mate, but your rockets of desire were shooting out as a result of what you were living with your mate. Mm-hmm. And then something happened that you began to allow, you could have found the same sexual chemistry with your mate when you came back into alignment with who you are as you did with this new person. The reason that you found it with the new person is because you didn't have all of this expectation that you were bringing along with you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because one of the things I found myself wrestling with was, did the sexual chemistry mean that that was the person I was supposed to be with?
It can, but it doesn't necessarily. What it means is you, in your frustration, in your contrast, launched some rockets of desire. The universe heard the rockets of desire, opened all kinds of doors to accommodate you. You hear us say often that what you're looking for is right there where you are, if you could let it come in. In simple terms, it was just easier for you to let it in another door than to let it in a familiar door, because the familiar door had dominant vibrations that weren't letting it in. The new door, it was easier to let it in. That's all.
Okay. Because I feel like I've been having virtual reality moments without realizing it, but they're remembering moments with this other person. So I don't know if that means that I'm only
it's just easier. That's
allowing it with this other person whom I haven't seen. But
what we're encouraging you to do here is to have a fantasy that gives you a moment of allowing. In other words, we're not saying face the truth. We're saying go to a virtual reality. And so there isn't anything wrong with you putting a different face on it if you want to. We would, since it's troubling to you. The whole idea of it is troubling to you.
The thing that's troubling to me is that making me wonder if the right thing to do would be to get a divorce and be with this other person, because that doesn't seem uplifting to dismantle my family, and this other person is also in a family.
Well, what we've noticed as we see people unhappy where they are and then leaving it to go someplace else, even if there is something else that is calling them, usually the vibration that was dominant remains dominant. In other words, you have some different things to focus upon, and so for a while there can be change, but you usually begin to revert back to whatever that vibration was. Okay. Here is what we would encourage. We would encourage that you stay where you are, and if you get into this really high-flying, good-feeling place, and you get an impulse to do something, then follow it. And so then you have to ask yourself, am I feeling like going there from those high-flying, good-feeling places, or am I feeling like going there from my place of discouragement and depression?
Yeah. Well, actually, I have taken a year where we have had no contact, and my whole thought was to try to get clear on what was it I wanted. And without knowing about this process, I've been doing these virtual realities, and they feel wonderful. But when I think about ending my marriage, that feels terrible.
Well, of course it does. So don't think that thought. In other words, don't do a virtual reality on that. Do a virtual reality on things that feel good. The thing that many would like to hear from us or from someone is, what's the right thing to do? And we say, the right thing to do is to get into a place where you are dominantly feeling good, which will cause you to allow what you really want to happen. And what we mean by that is, source energy has been hearing what you want. So then someone might translate that to say, well, if she gets into a good feeling place, won't she immediately go to her new lover? And we say, not necessarily, because when she gets into that good feeling allowing place, maybe her new sweet lover will be her already married to husband. In other words, if you could have it all, wouldn't you want to feel the way you feel about this new person, only have it be the one that you were already involved in? If you could have it all, yes. If you could have it all, wouldn't you want it to be that way?
Yes.
But it's your realism that says, well, I've been there and it hasn't been that way, and I don't think I can have it all, so I think I need to go over here. And we say, you can have it all. You just think that you keep having to orchestrate the way it comes. And we're saying, have it all in your virtual reality, have it all in your virtual reality often enough that your virtual reality is causing a positive vibration that feels good most of the time, and source energy and law of attraction will deliver to you what you really want. Okay. And you'll feel it unfold.
Is it possible for that to happen and not worry about what other people would think?
In order for you to have it all, it would have to be that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
In other words, now you're speculating. In other words, now you're sort of choosing a side from a place of still not feeling very good and wanting others to adjust to it. And we say, now you're dabbling in controlling the minds of others. Here is what we will say to you emphatically. It is possible for you to have exactly what you want without hurting anybody else's feelings by factoring all of that into your intention. Right. But we've never met anyone who could factor all of those things in and stay in a pure vibration.
Okay.
You just have to leave it to the universe. You just have to say, the best thing will happen if I get into the best feeling place that I can. You have to stop feeling guilty. Those two don't go together. When you get into a virtual reality that feels good, you're not feeling guilty at the same time. And when you don't feel guilty, you're allowing things to evolve, you see. Okay. We wouldn't talk about it a great deal. We wouldn't stew over it or worry about it. We'd feel grateful for the experience, all of the experience, and most of all, we would feel powerfully appreciative of where you stand and the desire for a dynamic, sexual, delicious, loving, full, round relationship. In other words, you want a relationship to be a lot of things. You want it to be a comfortable place. You want it to be a stable place. You want it to be a sensual place. You want it to be a loving place. You want it to be a nurturing place. You want it to be an expanding place. In other words, and it's right for you to want all those things. And so as you say, well, I want all of these things, but this is only some of those things, we say, that's only some of those things too.
Yes.
In other words, we very often will see people, they'll have a relationship that has a potential of 10 points, let's say, and 6 of them will be really, really good, and 4 of them will be off in some way, maybe really off. Mm-hmm. And then they'll look over there and they'll see one of those 4 points, and they'll say, I should go over there. And often they go over there to end up with 3 instead of 6.
Yeah.
Because there are many things that you want, you see. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Very good. Very, very, very good. Right there.